Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. Welcome to another video by Sir Shazwa. Today we'll be looking at the next chapter in our ELC501 lesson, which is purpose, tone, audience and bias. So those things are what made up the reason for why the author wants to write something for the others to read. So we need to learn about their purpose, about their tone, and then who is it for, and any kind of bias that they have in the writing. So without further ado, let's move into the lecture. Right, so for this lecture, at the end of this chapter, we should be able to determine the author's purpose, why the reason for the author to write that text, that passage, or that article. Determine the author's tone, how is it, how are the words used in the writing. It's like maybe it's sad or happy, so those will be trying to find out. And determine the audience intended, the author's intended audience, meaning that who is the text for, who is the passage for. And then identify bias in language, because sometimes the author might be biased or might be unbiased, so it is up to us to identify those. So throughout learning, understanding these things, we'll be able to find the purpose, the tone, and who is it for, as well as identifying the bias, which can help you understand why the text is done like that. Okay, so let's look at determining the purpose. So what is determining the purpose? So there are several types of purposes for writing. So we have inform, persuade, and entertain. So it means that for inform, you just want to tell the reader about something new. Maybe you have a new concept, maybe you have a new idea you want to share, maybe you have a new opinion. So when you just want to tell them about it, it is to inform. When you want to persuade someone to do it, you want to convince them to do something based on what you have write or speak. Okay, so purpose of writing can be purposes for speaking as well. So when you want to persuade, you use language aspects that help you try to persuade others into listening or understanding what you want to for them to do. And then lastly, so one of the purpose for writing is to entertain. Maybe you want to write something, a story, maybe you want to write a poem, or maybe you want to write something that helps people to relax or enjoy it. So that is to entertain. Right, writing to inform. Let's look deeper into that. So the author provides information about the topic. They just give you the knowledge, new knowledge that based on whatever topic they want to talk about. So when you are writing to inform, the information is normally true and or contain facts. Because you want to share something new, it must be correct, it must be based on good supports. So whenever you want to write something to inform, make sure it is true and contain facts. Informative writing appears in textbooks, those textbooks that you have during your school time, or maybe the one that you have currently. So those are informative writing because they are trying to inform you of new knowledge. Reports, maybe they want to inform you something happens in the previously, okay? Maybe there happens, maybe there are new cases, maybe there are new information about something, so they do reports are informative writing. Encyclopedias, those are informative writing because you are learning something new from the encyclopedias. Reference books as well, so you are learning new information. Maybe you want to study about the assignments, or maybe you want to study about how to calculate something. You use reference book, those contain new information. Brochures, because sometimes brochures have details of a program, or maybe details of like a movement act or something. Maybe they just give brochures to tell you about the new places, those kinds of things. So they provide information in those writing. Magazines and news articles, those are informative writing. Okay, so remember when we talk about informative writing, it aims to provide information about a topic, and they are usually true or contain facts. So these are some examples of how informative writing can appear in. So the information aims to answer the 5W plus 1H questions. Why, when, who, what, where, and how. So sometimes you have these questions and then you want to find information, you look at that. You use those to answer it. You read through informative, you can answer the 5W 1H questions that you might have. Okay? Writing to persuade. So the author aims to convince the audience to agree with his or her position on a topic. Because sometimes maybe you think that, okay, example, we should have more care in taking, we should do more in taking care of students. Okay, that is your position. And then you want to convince others to agree with you as well. So that is, you write to persuade. So the facts are used to inform the audience about the topic. Remember, persuade, you must inform them first. Okay, when you're writing to inform, it is just to inform. But when you're writing to persuade, first you inform them about the topic, and then you use the facts to support your position on the topic, so that when people listen to you, they listen to what you are talking about the topic, because you are trying to convince them to somewhat agree with you. So you need to use facts, because if you have facts, so what you say is strong. Okay, and then people tend to believe those who have the good supports or facts. Okay, right. In addition, the author may use opinions and biased language to further strengthen the position, meaning that their own opinion as well as some biased language, meaning that they are giving more emphasis on one side rather than the other. They just say that this one is good, the other is not good, something like that. Okay. Persuasive writing appears in, there are some examples here. Advertisement. They want to convince you to go to somewhere to buy something. So those kinds of ads that you look into Facebook, and then you look at into the paper that have advertisement, they are persuasive writing, because they want to convince you to join or buy something. Okay. Campaigns, for example, political campaigns, when they write, they provide their ideologies and then propaganda here. So they want you to join them and vote for them or something like that. Okay, or maybe like a health campaign, because they want to convince people to be more healthy. So that is one way to use persuasive writing. Political speeches, like I mentioned just now, political speech, propaganda, all these ideologies and their suggestions, those kinds of things, you use persuasive writing. Stories. Sometimes stories can be persuasive writing, because you want to convince others to believe what you are telling them. Okay? Right. Writing to entertain. The author writes to appeal to senses and imagination. Usually they are in the form of what we say storybooks, novels, those kinds of things. Okay? The author usually describes places, ideas, and characters to amuse and engage the audience. They want to make the audience feel like they are what we say, wow, this is very interesting, it's very beautiful. When you read something that has been written to entertain, you can somewhat imagine what happens or the place, what does it look like. Okay, these places, ideas, or characters may be real or imaginary. It might be something that is based on a real thing, or maybe it's something fiction. Okay? Right. So those are the three types of purposes when you do for writing. So you are writing to inform, persuade, and to entertain. So how do you identify those things? By looking at the way of their writing. Okay? Right. Determining the tone. An author's tone is the language used to express his or her attitude towards a topic. Sometimes they might be supportive, or maybe they will be unsupportive. So the way they write the text can show what is their stance there for their opinion or the attitude towards a topic. The tone is what the author feels about the subject, okay? And the mood is how the audience feels about the subject. So tone, author. Mood is the audience, okay? They want to set like a sad mood so that the audience will feel sad, will feel very down from reading that, okay? Right. So the types of tones we have objective and subjective, not questions, okay? Types of tones, objective, subjective. So we have impersonal for objective, subjective, personal. Unbiased for objective, biased for subjective. Unemotional for objective, emotional for subjective. Subjective is more towards you or your own. Okay? While objective is more direct, being direct and straight. Let's look at some of the examples. Okay? First one, I guess that is all we can do right now. Our funds are limited. Considering those times we had it worse than this, I suppose things are not so bad right now. So based on what you have read here, so the tone is tolerant, because the person, they feel tolerant, they just accept what happens because it might become worse. Okay, the phrase that is all we can do right now, and I suppose things are not so bad right now, show that the author accepts the situation they are in right now. So the tone is tolerant. So based on what the person have written about. Okay. Another example. This is my house. There are 5 rooms, 4 upstairs and 1 downstairs. My room is the one downstairs. So the tone here is objective. The author does not express any feelings about the house, but merely stated the facts. So remember, when you talk about two types of tones, objective and subjective, objective is direct and we're not influenced by any feelings, whereas subjective are influenced by feelings. So when you talk about the tone is objective, it's being direct, it's being the person tells directly about what is there, with all the facts, without anything that can affect what he said. Alright. Example of subjective and objective tones. The first one is more subjective, whereas the second one is objective. So other subjective tones include ambivalence, amusement, anger, bitterness, candidness, concern, fear, frustration, happiness, horror, humor, irony, optimism, pessimism, pompousness, sadness, seriousness, suspicion, tolerance, and wittiness. So those are subjective tones. If you look through the subjective tones, you can see that those are emotions. So remember, subjective tones are based on the emotions. For example, Bob has been absent for months, yet he knows what questions will come out for the final examination. So the author's tone is ironic, as Bob is aware of what questions will be asked in the final examination, despite having been absent for months. So what you can see here is that the author is being ironic, okay? And then it being like what we said, those have been said with emotions, have been written with emotions. Right, now determining the audience. What does it mean by determining the audience? To determine the audience, ask yourself the following questions. Who is the author addressing, and who would be interested in his or her idea? So imagine yourself as being someone who wrote like maybe an essay, maybe like an advertisement. So who are you addressing? That is the main point here. Who is the text for, and who will be interested in his or her idea? Okay, that is how you determine the audience. So the intended audience can be any of the following. It can be a specific person, for example, chief of police, government minister, company director, etc. Or it can be a group of people. example, school children, youth, parents, club members, doctors, teachers, etc. Or the third one, the general public. For example, society at large, the locals, the British example. So the audience can be one person, can be a group of people, or they can be a lot. Okay, determine it. You need to be able to determine them. Okay? There are some clues in writing. When you read through any kind of writing, there will be some clues on what they shows who is the audience. Okay, right. Identifying biases in language. Right. Sometimes when they write something, they have biases. Okay, they might be putting more emphasis towards something compared to the other one. On once, imagine there are two sides of a coin. You focus more on the one side. Okay? Biased language refers to the use of words and phrases which are considered prejudiced, offensive, and hurtful. So whenever you use biased language, it means that you are being prejudiced, you are being offensive, and you're being hurtful. Meaning that you are not being fair to the others. Okay? Biased language demean or exclude people based on social class, age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, skin color, or any other physical or mental traits, and even professions. When you are being biased, or when you are using biased language, it means that you are being discriminatory. Okay? You are discriminating others, and you are being biased. Okay? So when you use language that shows that your social class is better than the others, then you are being biased. Okay? You are being prejudiced. Let's look at some examples. Okay? Words or phrases which are prejudiced, offensive, and hurtful indicates a bias against someone or something. Okay? So first one, text. In this age, he cannot even remember where he put his glasses. So that is a bias there. So description of that is bias against the old for forgetting things. Yes, sometimes it happens, right? People misplace things because he forgot. He get forgetful. Okay? Gets forgetful, something like that. Okay. And then second one, no wonder the car in front turned right when the signal was given for a left turn. The driver is a woman. Bias against women as they are assumed to be bad drivers. This happens there's a lot of this happen. Whenever someone who is driving badly, they assume that is a woman. So that is biases actually. Okay, it's a bias towards the woman. Okay, that is one example of biases in language. So try to avoid using biases in language because sometimes you are being prejudiced, you are being offensive, you might hurt others, you might put down people because of their inability of doing something. Maybe there are differences between you guys. That is very bad for society. Okay? So these are some example. Words or phrases which are favorable indicate a bias towards something or someone. So when you are being biased towards something, there are some phrases that can show that. Okay? So for example, of course, they are good at math. So they are Asians. So the bias is that they are biased towards Asians who are considered to be good at math. Whenever you see Asian, you say, okay, they are good at math. But sometimes it doesn't happen like that. So the bias is there. And the second one, did you notice how clean and neat his house is? The second person said, he's Japanese. What do you expect? So it's biased toward the Japanese who are generally known to be very clean and neat. Okay? So everything that you feel, sometimes there are prejudices in life. Okay? So you need to be careful. Maybe if you feel something like that, just keep it to yourself rather than telling or writing about it. Okay? Because being biased doesn't help you to become better in life. Right, that's the conclusion. The author's choice and order of words are used to convey different purposes, tones, and biases. So, towards an intended audience, because sometimes they have different purpose. They want to inform about something. they want to tell you about something, or maybe they just want to entertain, as well as there are some tones that they have used to show the importance or maybe the reality that happens based on the topic, as well as they want to show the biases there. So you need to remember that these things are very important for you to understand, because when you are required to read a lot of text, sometimes you want to identify these things, these purposes, tones, and biases, so that you will be able to, what we say, put yourself into the author's shoes, so that we will be able to understand why the author is writing like that. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that this lecture will be able to help you understand better about the purposes of writing, the tones that the author might use in the writings, or it might be objective or might be subjective, and maybe the language that they have used might be having biases or not. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me. My name is Shazwan. Let's meet up in another lecture. Thank you very much. Bye bye.